Any methamphetamine, sir?
No. I did not commit these crimes, and so I plan to appeal my convictions.
Anderson is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson in connection with the death of 19-year-old Shardai Robinson.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a city built on beer, hard labor, and a strong feeling of community. But in April of 2024, that sense of security was blown apart when a human leg washed up at daybreak. At first, cops worried it was just some awful accident. But what they discovered next would spiral into one of the most messed up murder cases this city has ever seen. And it would send investigators on a crazy hunt for a killer, chasing him through surveillance video, witness stories, and forensic clues. And as folks learned about Shardai Robinson and the disgusting man behind her murder, a lot of people started asking if maybe he was even a serial killer. In today's video, we're heading to Milwaukee, where in 2024, a tight-kept mystery turned into a straight-up outrageous murder. The whole dating scene has changed so much with the internet. Some changes are for the better, but mostly for the worse, if you ask me. I mean, being real with you, I think we've lost touch with the old-school way of dating. And sadly, we've seen some pretty horrible crimes come out of apps like Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, and Puff. I mean, some have even ended in murder, and this case is no different. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you that CD Crime Diaries covers all kinds of strange, dark, and messed up stories. Stories that need patience, care, and time. So let's begin today's case. Grab yourself a coffee, get settled in, and let's investigate. This is the case of Shardai Robinson. Our story starts right here near the bluffs of Winnemont Park. The park sits on the eastern edge of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a busy city on the western shore of Lake Michigan. Called Brew City, Milwaukee is famous for its beer. But it's also known for its cheese festivals and German food. Basically, all the good stuff in life. From the sunny beaches along the lake to its lively downtown skyline, Milwaukee has charm for everyone. In fact, its name even comes from a Native American word meaning pleasant land by the lake. But nothing in life is always pretty. And in April of 2024, Milwaukee's image got shattered when a string of horrible events went down right in the city's backyard. It was on the morning of April 2nd that a guy walking along the bluffs at Winnemont Park tripped over something in the sand. Now at first, he wasn't really sure what it was. And when he got up the nerve to take a closer look, well, that's when he couldn't believe what was right in front of his eyes. It was right then he realized he'd just accidentally found a severed human leg, and there was no question about it either. This belonged to a young woman. A few minutes later, cops showed up at the scene with their body cameras recording the awful moment right here.
What's up, man? So, this is Evan Millies. We've dealt with him before. Sometimes, mostly a good guy. He's gotten into this trouble a couple times, but good dude.
Okay.
So they walked down the S-curve from Sheridan, started walking south just for fun, rough day on the beach. As they were walking, see that leg right there?
Yeah.
Said that it was up about approximately where the end of that stick, that branch is.
By the bushes right there.
Yeah, bushes. Said that they saw it up
So it's
there.
like up on the hill, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So said that him and his buddy, who's in my squad right now, walked out, called us, and then when we came back, it was about, I don't know, maybe 7 feet east.
Find a rock.
I moved it just for evidence purposes.
Okay, so this gets swept away?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I documented it well on body cam with different angles of where it was. And
Okay, cool. All right, we got
You want to tell me where it is?
You usually come this way?
Yeah.
Yeah? The first time you seen anything here? Yeah? It's the first time you seen anything like this?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
With this leg turning up so close to the water, a lot of folks first thought maybe it was just a tragic accident. But when investigators took a better look at the leg, they realized because of how it was cut off, this was most likely a homicide instead. But this was only the start of the mystery because that exact same morning, and on the complete other side of town, police got reports of a burned-out car. And as it turned out, these two separate things would actually be connected. Like you see in this body cam footage, it was the charred leftovers of a Honda Civic, and while the inside was destroyed by the fire, the car itself was still easy to recognize. And luckily, they could even still read its license plate. Just like the severed leg found by the cliffs, investigators would quickly call this no accident. The fire had clearly been set on purpose, and as fire crews checked out the scorched vehicle, they also figured out they were pulling burnt clothes from the trunk, and pieces of an iPhone from the ashes. Of course, all of this was scary enough already. But in the days that followed, more body parts started showing up all over the city. For example, a human foot was found near 31st and Galena Streets, not far from the train tracks that run through the neighborhoods close to downtown Milwaukee. And then 16 days after the leg was found, on April 18, 2024, a torso and a single arm were discovered along a quiet beach in South Milwaukee. With these two things being the third and fourth weird crime scenes, this was really starting to worry the cops. And when they saw that the limbs all looked like they came from the same person, they began to wonder if maybe this was all tied to one victim and one killer. But at this point in the investigation, there was still one crucial piece missing. Of course, that was the victim's head. As investigators carefully put all the evidence together, DNA tests would finally come back with one sad result. All the scattered remains belonged to a 19-year-old college student who'd been reported missing just a few days earlier. A student who also seemed connected to the burned-out car and the license plate, and sadly her name was Shardai Robinson. Now Shardai wasn't just a student but also a local. Born on May 10, 2004 to her parents Sheena Scarborough and Carlos Robinson, Shardai was dearly loved by her family. Originally from Vicksburg, Mississippi, the family then moved north to Milwaukee when she was only 2 years old. She lived with her parents and her younger sister Adriana Reams, who looked up to her not just as a sister, but as a best friend and a guide while figuring out her own teen years. Growing up in Milwaukee, Shardai went to Riverside University High School, where teachers and classmates knew her for her bright smile, her kindness, and the good vibes she brought into every room. And by the time she was becoming a young adult, Shardai was a student at Milwaukee area Technical College, and when she died was actually working on a degree in criminal justice. She was also known for being a good student and was said to be hardworking, focused, and driven. Now, besides her schoolwork, Shardai worked 2 jobs, one at the Wisconsin Country Club with her sister, and at Pizza Shuttle, which is a local restaurant. To make this even more tragic, Shardai was only weeks away from finishing her college degree when she vanished. She was excited about her future and was even thinking about a career in law enforcement or the military. So obviously her life was not only full of promise with a supportive family and close friends behind her, but she was also ready for the next chapter of her life, which probably would have done good for the community. So with Shardai being young and single at the time, she was looking for someone to share her life with. And with that in mind, in the months leading up to April, she decided to try the world of dating apps to see who she could meet. We'll come back to that in a bit, but for now, let me just say she was young, happy at the start of her grown-up life, and of course, was looking for love. With Shardai's name now linked to the burned-out car and multiple limbs found across the city, police were pretty sure she had died. And so with this now an active murder investigation, they did what all good cops do and checked the city's surveillance network. It turns out Milwaukee is absolutely covered in cameras from restaurants and bars, all the way to buses and bus stops. So like you can guess, they had a lot to work with. They decided to go through all the footage with a kind of 2-part plan, starting with the moment she was last seen alive, and moving forward, and also starting from where her burned-out car was and moving backward. So let's begin on the night she disappeared, when she was last reported seen at a seafood restaurant called the Twisted Fisherman. And this is where things get interesting right away. Investigators learned that on April 1st, 2024, Shardai had set up a first date with a guy she'd been talking to. She told him in one of her messages that she was in the mood for seafood and then headed out to meet him. Surveillance video taken at the restaurant shows Shardai sitting at the bar with this unknown man. The two were seen eating and drinking together for about an hour before leaving later that evening. Staff would later tell investigators that the man in the footage had actually worked there before too. So if they wanted to look for this guy, then they already had a lead. From the Twisted Fisherman, traffic cameras followed Shardai's Honda Civic into downtown Milwaukee, where the pair were seen stopping at Jukes on Water, a busy bar on North Water Street. From here, her Honda Civic can be seen pulling up at 6:33 p.m. Shardai then got out of the driver's side while her date got out of the passenger side, and together they crossed the street and headed into the bar. Inside, more surveillance footage showed them laughing, talking, and even hugging at the counter as they ordered drinks. It was a couple of hours later, around 9 p.m., that the two then left together. And tragically, this would be the last time Shardai was ever properly seen alive on camera. From here on out, investigators would now have to rely heavily on other kinds of evidence. For example, Cell phone tower data and a location-sharing app that Shardai used with friends would track her phone leaving downtown and heading south, where it then stopped near a house on South 39th Street. It was at 9:24 p.m. that a home security camera caught the property's back gate swinging open. The camera then picked up two shadows that were consistent with two people. It's likely Shardai and this man walked through the backyard before heading upstairs. Cell phone tower data would also confirm that Shardai's phone stayed in that small area for a little over 3 hours. And during that time, she never showed up on any other camera. Around 12:45 a.m. on April 2nd, movement inside the house stopped. And then a few minutes later, another camera in the alley behind the home caught a Honda Civic driving away before heading south and turning back toward the city. Traffic footage and phone data would later show it passing through the area near Shardai's downtown apartment. But building security cameras would also confirm she never actually made it back home. Instead, it was figured out that her phone kept moving. It crossed into Milwaukee as River West neighborhood before pausing near Pleasant Valley Park and then heading across the city toward the lake. Between 2:45 a.m. and 3 a.m. Data placed the phone near Warnemont Park. That's the same area where her leg would later be found. And around 2:50 a.m., a nearby pump house camera caught a vehicle matching her Civic entering the area. A lone figure can then be seen walking toward the beach, where it was making several trips between the shoreline and a service road, before finally leaving about 90 minutes later. Now, of course, all of this was super suspicious behavior for the police to find. And soon after these discoveries, yet another piece of footage would turn up. But this time, unlike the other still cameras, this one was from a bus. The bus was passing through Lisbon Avenue just as the fire started burning in a nearby parking lot. And in the foreground, a figure can be seen walking away just as the fire got going. In a lucky moment, yet unlucky for the mysterious figure, this was the kind of surveillance footage nobody could predict or avoid. It was just pure chance, but still, it was crucial for the cops. They noticed the man wore dark pants, a gray hooded sweatshirt, and carried a big tan backpack that looked full. A surveillance camera above a liquor store nearby would also catch another angle of the fire. In that shot, two people can be seen in front of the store, one wearing a blue jacket and the other holding an umbrella. The woman in the blue jacket later told detectives she saw a white male stepping out of the Civic's driver's seat before flicking a lighter into the car and walking away like nothing happened. And footage from another bus would show the same man in the same hoodie and same backpack getting on that bus with cash and then riding south down 35th Street. And then around 8:35 a.m. that morning, he asked to be let off early and not at an official bus stop. It's worth noting here that this was near Lakefield Drive and pretty conveniently was only an 8-minute walk from the home where Shardai's phone had last been active. So I am sure by now you probably tired of all the surveillance footage I've shown you. But at 8:43 a.m., a final camera, mounted on a house across the street, would capture the same man walking through the gate of the property. And again, he was still wearing the same jeans, same hoodie, and same backpack. By that point, Shardai's car had already been found and identified, and thanks to the Life 360 app she'd used, her family and friends had given all the location data to the cops. And so with her movements now mapped out and plenty of surveillance video to go on, officers were very interested to find out who that mysterious man was. And when officers went down to the Twisted Fisherman to ask the staff if maybe they knew who this guy was, well, they'd be in for a surprise. And it turns out that man was not smart at all. I mean, like really dumb, because he just so happened to be a former employee there. And so with that said, let's talk about 33-year-old Maxwell Steven Anderson. With a name to go with his face, detectives started checking him out. They got his dating app activity, his phone records, and his work history, which to be honest, he had already basically done himself. Like you might imagine, the data confirmed Maxwell had in fact set up the date with Shardai, and had also been at each place she visited that night. Not only that, but the data also showed his phone activity matched the exact route taken by Shardai's Honda Civic from start to finish. Of course, this was clearly enough for cops to get real suspicious of Maxwell. So, police moved fast to get a search warrant for his place. And when they got inside, well, that's when they found clothes and stuff that perfectly matched what they'd seen in the surveillance footage. That included the dark hoodie and the tan backpack. It became pretty clear this case was now coming together fast, and not only was Maxwell the last person seen with Shardai Robinson, but also was the only person seen moving through the locations now tied to her death. And so pretty soon, police decided to arrest Maxwell during a traffic stop near his own home. And once they did, they learned a few more key details about his past. There's no mystery to this part of the story, folks. Given the amount of surveillance video and evidence available, the authorities had plenty to go on. And so, when Maxwell Anderson's trial started on May 27, 2025, it was kind of obvious he was going down. The prosecution had a mountain of evidence to pick from, including data, surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements. They began by showing how Shardai had met Maxwell, highlighting that their first connection was through a dating app, which then moved to text messages before them, then planning to meet on the evening of April 1st, 2024. The scary thing here, folks, is that Shardai was doing what tens of millions of us do every single year. It seems now more than 15% of people in the West have actually met their partner through a dating app. And the number who have met someone online at least once is sky high. And so theoretically, out of the hundreds of millions of us who have tried a dating app and met someone online in person before, this easily could have been you or me. As we know, surveillance video and phone records confirm that both Shardai and Max were together all night. And of course, everyone was curious to know what happened inside his house. Photos taken from inside his home on the night she died are mostly private. But it does sadly turn out he had taken pictures of her lying face down on the couch, both limp and unresponsive, which basically means this sick man took pictures of her as some kind of trophy. The prosecution also talked about the hidden spaces found inside his home and also claimed they all pointed to a person who craved control, secrecy, and isolation. And while the defense objected about their importance, the prosecution would argue back and say it showed his home was set up to hide and conceal evidence. The main investigators on the case would also testify that Max had stayed in the home with her body for several hours. And during this time, he had almost certainly cut her up with saws, knives, and an axe. And besides these weapons, they also found gloves, tarps, and cleaning supplies inside the place. Meanwhile, Max's defense was clearly fighting an uphill battle. But they would still try. They argued there was no direct video or audio of the killing, and her whole body was never fully found, which is kind of nuts to think about because most of Shardai's body was found and confirmed to be hers. Anyway, thankfully the jury would see right through the nonsense, and on June 6, 2025, not even 2 weeks into his trial and only after just 45 minutes of talking it over, they all found him guilty on all counts. As a result, Maxwell Stephen Anderson was officially convicted of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse arson, and hiding a corpse, and was therefore sent to life in prison without the chance of parole.
On behalf of myself and my family, I'd like to say a few things. First, to Shardai's family, there are no words that I can share that will reduce your pain. You are all in my thoughts every single day. I'm not asking you to forgive anybody or anything. That is between you and your God.
This demon and his whole ass attorney, they knew exactly what he did and what he was responsible for. They took us through extreme agony and pain. We are already dealing with so much trauma. You will be dealt with eternally, like I stated. But Your Honor, Judge, I'm asking that this demon be respectfully returned back to hell as soon as possible. That's what I'm requesting through the court. Please return him back to hell as soon as possible.
When given the chance to speak, Max still pathetically claimed he was innocent. Not only did he tell the court he wasn't responsible for her death, but also that it must all be some crazy mix-up. He would even then go on to say he planned to appeal his conviction.
My deepest and most sincere condolences go out to Shardai's family, as well as everyone else affected by this tragedy. That being said, Your Honor, I took this to trial without ever once trying to make a plea deal of any kind, because I did not commit these crimes. And so I plan to appeal my convictions.
This whole case is infuriating at best. And to be honest with you, it's stories like this that slowly chip away at my faith in the system. Max showed seriously troubling warning signs for many years and had even beaten up his own family. And yet, despite this, he always got away with nothing more than a slap on the wrist. The main issue here is that people who were slowly introduced to Maxwell could probably see the red flags over time, and they could use that time to decide if they wanted to get close to him or not. But again, with Shardai finding Maxwell over a dating app, She had no time to figure out his nature or personality and was basically thrown into the deep end with dinner and drinks. After this horrible story, family, friends, classmates, co-workers, and even strangers all came together to remember Shardai. And in that moment, they celebrated her spirit, her humor, her warmth, and of course, the future she was building for herself. Her favorite color, which was pink, became a symbol for the way her community remembered her. And in the weeks after the trial, her loved ones organized what soon became known as the Pink Day Tribute. In a protest against his ugly mark, people showed up outside Maxwell's old home wearing pink shirts, ribbons, and balloons. They wanted to take back his house of horrors as a place to remember Shardai instead. And so, in response, they left candles, flowers, handwritten notes, and even posters in her memory. A scholarship fund was also started in her name, meant to help students at Riverside University High School, where she once studied. For her family, that scholarship meant far more than just remembering her. It was both a continuation and a way for Shardai's life to lift up others. Across Milwaukee, pink ribbons, murals, vigils, and memory events still keep serving as reminders not just of what was lost, but also of what still matters. That safety, compassion, and protecting young women is still a very big issue in America this year. By the way, and just to put it out there are lots of talks and theories about whether Maxwell might actually be a serial killer, and even law enforcement has these questions. And although there's no direct proof of this yet, there are still several missing women in the area. And as for how Shardai's body was found, well, this could maybe be Maxwell's MO. Again, this is only a theory for now. But the question is, could Shardai maybe be just one of many victims to Maxwell Anderson? Well, sadly, yes. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have on this video today. But before I go, I'd love to know what you think about this one. Do you think Maxwell could, in fact, be a serial killer? Because the way he got rid of Shardai's body, so cold and callous and calculated, that seems professional. If you're new here, please feel free to subscribe too. And thank you again. And of course, stay safe and stay curious. Thank you and goodbye.